Hello, everyone. We will go ahead and give it a few minutes before we officially get started, but welcome to the Ask Me Anything webinar. Welcome, welcome. So excited to see you all here today. We will get started shortly, waiting for some friends to come on through. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to the Ask Me Anything summer webinar series, where we hope to answer your questions about what it looks like to attend Biola University. My name is Kayla Zuniga, and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions here at Biola. And I'm so excited to see how many people have joined us in this series. This is the second of 4 episodes where we seek to answer questions to a variety of audiences and offices across our campuses. Today's episode will include our parent council, where they will be able to offer the unique perspective of the parent experience and what it was like to send their student to Biola. So we ask that in this episode that all of your questions are relevant to the parents and their experience, as we have opportunity to hear from a variety of departments moving forward in the weeks to come. So we had some pre-submitted questions that we will have our guests answer first. And as time allows, we'll allow you to go ahead and submit some other questions that might come up as you hear the parents talking. Feel free to use the chat feature or the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions, and we'll go ahead and get to those later in the webinar series. But without further ado, let's go ahead and have our guests introduce themselves. So Liz and Jolly, if you could go ahead and start us off by introducing yourself, where you're from, years and majors of your student, and one piece of advice that you wish you would have known coming to Biola.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liz. This is my husband, Jolly. We're from Hayward, California, up here in Northern California, Bay Area, and we have 4 children. And our oldest, Solomon, graduated from Biola in 2018 in poli-sci. He's currently in Washington, D.C., working for Congress. Our daughter, Abigail, and our son, Nate, did not go to Biola, but they are also graduated from college and doing their thing. And our last born, Elijah Chen, is currently going to be a junior at Biola, and he is studying business administration. So we are empty nesters, 2 years of empty nesting. And so it's been a great journey. And the one thing that
I guess one piece of advice, or one piece that I wish I've known is just don't be afraid to ask. If you don't know something about the school or dorms or finances or anything like that, same thing for your student. Tell them not to be afraid to ask. They can get, counseling for academic counseling if they're wondering about what course to take, majors. They could get other types of counseling if they need help. You just got to speak up. Don't ever sort of suffer in silence, either as a parent or as a student, just to make sure that you let them know that they need to reach out. There are a lot of resources on campus. The staff and faculty are super supportive, but you need to kind of speak up.
Yeah. And a fun fact that I didn't know was that at the end of the year, when everybody's moving out, there is a ton of free stuff that the kids don't want. So don't fill your van completely, because you might pick up a lot of Biola merch and other free stuff. Nobody told me that.
That's great. Who doesn't want some free stuff? That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and pass it to Fred and Lisa.
Hello, I'm Lisa Holly, and my husband Fred was not able to join us today. He's working. We have 2 kids. Our oldest, our son Landon, graduated from Biola in 2020, right in the thick of the pandemic. He was a communications major and is now living in Florida, working for the Jesus Film Project as a writer and just really thriving. And our daughter is going to be starting her senior year at Biola this coming fall. She is a nursing student. She's loving the nursing program, and both the kids absolutely love Biola. And as parents, we love Biola too. So we couldn't be more thrilled that they made Biola their school of choice for college. Let's see, what else? I think as a piece of advice, I think the one thing I didn't learn it after the first one, it took two kids to learn it. When they first got to Biola, you know, when you're first leaving your kid at college, you're so excited to hear how it's going. What are they doing? Are they making friends? And my kids were having such a great time. They didn't have time to let us know how they were doing. And so I got super frustrated with the first one, just thinking, oh, that's so my son to just be all social and doing his thing with his friends and not take time to text us and let us know how it's going. But no, the same thing happened with our daughter too. And I got frustrated both times because I didn't learn it. So just I would say lower your expectation the first couple of weeks anyway, as they're settling in. They're having a good time. At least in our case, they were having a really great time, and there was so much going on. And Biola does such a great job of trying to integrate the new students, that they kind of just experiencing that freedom and having fun, and don't necessarily want to reach out and text their parents the first couple of weeks too much.
Thank you, Lisa. I know that my mom was in a similar experience when I did my undergrad here as well. I remember her messaging me probably 4 weeks into the semester, and she's all, "Why has it been 4 weeks and I haven't heard from you, Kayla?" So I know
Yes.
that I was a product of that as well. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Rebecca Irwin.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Rebecca Irwin, and I have two sons. My oldest son, Max, graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo a week and a half ago, and will be employed in Long Beach. And then my youngest son, Jack, is a rising junior at Biola, and he's a business administration marketing major, and has loved his 2 years here so far. And I think the thing I wish I had known beginning this journey is how quickly 4 years can go by so fast. And in realizing that, I think coming to university is such an amazing experience for your student. It can be. And just to take full advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to them, whether it's intramurals or clubs or going to the chapel. There's so many things in this kind of little self-sustaining city that they can do and have access to, that it's a wonderful time and place to just dive in with both feet, and do all those things. So that's my advice.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So we will go ahead and hear from each of you with the pre-submitted questions that our audience submitted prior to this webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this first one. What was one concern you had about your child attending Biola that was alleviated once they arrived?
Hey, there's kind of radio silence because honestly, after visiting Biola all the times and everything, so excited for our kids to go there. We didn't really have any major concerns. You know, there's always the anxiety a little bit as a parent when you send your first kid off to college, just oh, I'm gonna miss them. Like there were tears, but then there were also moments of when are they leaving? But Biola just did such a good job welcoming us in as parents. Move-in weekend is so well done, and welcoming the students that didn't have major worries about dropping our kids off at Biola. So if anyone has any specific worries, let us know. But Biola does a really good job of both helping the parents and helping students through this transition, I feel like.
I think I was really struck by the, I don't know what they call it. It was at the end where there were people, we got to pray over our child, and kind of launch them fully to Biola. I think that I was not expecting that. And that was really meaningful to know that I was sending my child to an institution with godly people who were going to nurture my son. And I did not expect that. I did not expect that. And I just loved it. And then throughout, especially Solomon, our oldest career at Biola, he got to know the professors and played basketball with them and had dinner with them. I mean, that was completely unexpected. That basically Biola was an extension of mom and dad to some degree. So that was really a just added blessing.
Yeah, it in both of those answers, I hear a student being passed off in a way, but there was a beautiful pass off from parent to institution where Biola was able to care for and foster relationship with the students that are coming in. And I think that's consistently an answer that we hear in the admissions office of students care and being taken seriously here. So it's beautiful to hear both of you express that. And the event that you mentioned was a well-loved communion that we offer every year for our students. So we end our orientation weekend with communion and being able to pray over the students and even just foster that time with their parents, that last night with their parents to pray over their students. So it's a beautiful time. A lot of parents and families end in tears, but they're beautiful tears as they launch their child off into their education at Biola. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next question. What was it like having your student come home for the first time?
I can answer that. So when they come home, you might be thinking they want to see mom and dad, they want to be with their siblings or whatever. Mostly they just seem like they want to sleep. And so when they come home, they just seem like they sleep like 20 hours a day. And then they want to see their hometown friends. So it's like, mom and dad is like an Airbnb. But all kidding aside, I think, you want your home when they return for the first visit, just be a restful place for them. They want just kind of a break from, and whenever they come back, usually it's during the holidays, first holidays or something like that. They want to rest, they want to sleep in, and don't fill it with too many activities, I would say, because they might not be up for doing those things with the family.
Yeah, and I would say in treating them as adults, like when you want to see someone, you make an appointment with them. I always try to make dinner plans with my child when he comes in. Okay, are you free on this day, this day, this way? That way, I don't have these expectations like he's going to be home every night for dinner. Because like Jolly said, they might want to see their friends. So make a date with them. Make a date with them, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's family dinner. I always find that that's really helpful on both sides.
I love what you're saying, Liz and Jolly, and I would just add my 2 cents to that because they are used to being now autonomous and not having anyone check in on their arrival or departures. And so to hold loosely the expectations and find a way to work together on their time is really wise.
We actually even sat down with our kids when they first came home, recognizing that it was different because they were used to doing their own thing at college and not having to check in with us. So we kind of had a little meeting to sit down and kind of discuss our expectations on both sides, because they had expectations of continuing in their autonomous living, and we had a few expectations with them being back at home. Not a lot of rules, but still kind of wanting to have some dinners with them and different things. And we found that was really helpful because then we could just lay it out and not have frustrations on both sides because we had different expectations, but we discussed it up front. and kind of expressed what our expectations were and came to agreement. And that really helped the transition, especially when they first come home. That Thanksgiving or Christmas is typically a first time they come home. And that was, yeah, we found that really helpful.
Let me just add something that we implement in our home is that they may not have curfews, but our cars do. And so if they would like to borrow one of our cars, our car needs to come back at midnight because nothing good happens after midnight. So that's one of the things that we've kept to when our young adult children come home.
That's great. I will then transition. We have another question, a submitted question that was sent our way. What was one thing you or your student had to learn the hard way going through college and attending Biola?
The first thing that comes to my mind is getting enough sleep. I think that my son, especially my youngest, wanted to do all the things. And so he was trying to say yes to all the social invitations and still maintain his class schedule and work. And at some point, he just literally burned out, got ill, usually in the fall, gets sick, and has to find a way to maybe say no to some things so that he has more than 2 or 3 hours of sleep at night. But I don't think that would have been anything that I could have told him. I think he really had to experience that on his own and understand that it was a need he had, is to get enough sleep.
I think I would say navigating the lifelong lesson of friendships. Because sure, like we may have touched on that subject a little bit while he was in high school, but friendships really change and ebbs and flows in college, and also expectations of what you thought your friendship was with someone and navigating through that. And I know that everyone, even at Biola, want to find their tribe. So just, I think coming alongside them and giving them wisdom from God's word about friendships and how, you know, sometimes it's oftentimes very uneven, even, and that's just part of life and navigating through that.
Yeah, and as a freshman new to campus, you might meet hundreds of people in the first few weeks. I mean, just names and blurs, and you might, find that your roommate becomes your best friend or not your best friend, not such a great friend. And those are hard things to navigate for, for someone who's just maybe living away from home for the first time, and just understanding there's different expectations. People come from different backgrounds, and people like you, people unlike you. So it can be hard for a young adult to figure that out in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Especially what's modeled to them. Like if we're close to our college friends, then they might think, oh, well, college is where I'm going to meet my best friends. So not always the case.
Yeah, those are great expectations and even conversations to have with their students. I love that. But before we actually move on to our next question, we have a new panelist that we're able to introduce. So David and Carrie Kronk, I'll pass it over to you if you could share, introduce yourself, where you're from, and the years and majors of your students at Biola, and then one piece of advice that you wish you would have known coming into Biola.
Okay. So my name is Carrie, my husband is David, and our oldest just graduated from Biola. He graduated in business. So, and then our daughter she will be she'll be a junior at Biola, and she's public health. And then our youngest, she will be a freshman, and she's pursuing occupational therapy or PT. It's not quite sure. And your question was what we wish we knew, or what was your question? Oh,
yeah, one piece of advice that you want to offer the parents in the audience today that you wish you would have known coming into Biola.
I think our kids have had such a good experience, and so I think as parents, I remember talking to our kids about just encouraging them to be as involved as possible in all the mission trips. This is my husband Dave. So sports, just be as involved as you can, and to obviously you want them to, they're there to learn, to get an education, but to not be so focused on getting straight A's that they don't have any time to hang out with friends and really develop the relational side of their education experience also. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably
Hannah's mission trip to Utah.
Yeah, Hannah she in particular really loved the mission trip opportunities. That's probably the highlight that she's had. So
deepen friendships.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We're happy to have you as a part of our panelists today. I did want to, I know this wasn't a pre-submitted question, but I wanted to float this question out there, and even the process to which you all made the decision alongside of your student to come to Biola. What were some of the characteristics that stood out? What drew you to this space? And yeah, let's start with that.
And our oldest started pursuing college, or looking at colleges, we did a really deep dive, just first starting out looking at websites, seeing what they had to offer, really seeing what their mission and their faith statement was. For us, we had been learning that a lot of Christian colleges had been drifting from being biblically faithful. And so we wanted, if we were going to spend the money to send our son to a Christian university, we wanted it to be one that was going to align with we believed. And so we really discovered that isn't the case a lot of times, but we really loved what we found at Biola. And we visited a lot of different colleges, did things like visit chapels when we went, and just asked a lot of questions about what they actually do believe. And just Biola just kept coming to the top. And even our kids, we went through the same process with our daughter 5 years later, even though she'd done it with our son as a middle schooler. But even our kids noticed the difference at Biola, and we just felt so grateful to have a school that we could feel confident sending our child to, and recognizing that they were going to get biblically faithful teaching. And the fact that they would get the minor in biblical studies was such a cool thing that we loved for both our kids, because that's lifelong, knowledge of God's word that you can use no matter what. And they integrate all of the biblical faithfulness and things in with the students' majors too. So that was kind of our process.
So when our first child applied to Biola, we really didn't have any experience with Christian schools. My wife went to a public school. I went to a private secular school. We had heard of Biola because we had relatives who had attended Talbot, but we were not real familiar with Christian universities. I think that as a parent, you don't really know firsthand, and you kind of think traditionally, oh well, you need to go to a really high ranked school. Maybe costs are going to be cheaper at a public university in California compared to a private university. But we found that God just sort of alleviated all those kind of concerns. Happy to say my son is gainfully employed. He went to Biola, got a good job. But also that even through the process of applying, we were able to receive financial aid and assistance that really made it very competitive to going to public school. So the list price is very high. Everybody knows what it is now. It's very high. But we found that Biola was really, really great about financial help there. So in comparison to other schools, don't just compare the list price of two different schools if finance is a concern.
And Biola had the Tory program.
Yes, the Tory program,
which is phenomenal, and it really fit our son's kind of mode of learning, because we had homeschooled him, and that was kind of the track that we were on, and so it was a very natural fit, and he thrived in it. So Biola offered that.
And it's one of the few schools that still do it, and certainly I don't know if there are any other Christian schools that do it anymore, but it's very, very rare now.
Thank you all. We will transition to our next. Oh, Rebecca, did you have something? I saw you unmute.
Oh, I'm happy to answer this one too. I'll make it quick. For my son, he met a current student at Hume Lake as a lifeguard when he was a camper, and he was really attracted to who he was and learned that he was a Biola student. So that's what got him interested in it. He applied for 5 other schools, and we also tried to be very thorough with that search. But one of the things that there's 2 things that influenced his decision. One was that he had a conversation with a Biola professor and just said, like, why should I choose this school? And the professor's answer was that one of the greatest things you can gain from an education is the mentorship and relationships that you experience there. And I think that in these first 2 years, the relationship that he's been able to have with his professors has been, as already mentioned, pretty unexpected and exceptional. It's a school that's small enough that's feasible. You don't have to wait for a long line at office hours or whatever else. They make themselves accessible. And then the other thing was the Bible minor that was attracted to him as well. And he's really appreciated the discussion and conversation and being able to wrestle with current affairs and questions in a space that's permissible to do so, that allows him to express his own views about that as well. So it's been great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that Bible minor is something, even as a student myself, when I went here, I realized that I had only scratched the surface of what it meant to know the Lord. And it was through the Bible minor that I grew in my faith substantially. And we see that time and time again of students graduating with just a deeper sense of God's love. And I think of the mission of Biola to train men and women in mind and character to impact the world. We see students graduating and impacting the world through their employment, through their mission, through their ministry. We had a submitted question that feels that's in line with what we're talking about. So I'll go ahead and read that one. It said, did any of your students come from a public education, and did they feel like they struggled with the biblical courses compared to other students? So if there's anyone here that had students come from public education that can speak to that.
My sons did attend a public high school, Long Beach Poly High School, and it's a large school as well. So I do not have the sense that he struggled with those courses. I feel like there is a grace and an understanding that everyone is learning in that space. And I've only heard of good conversations coming in those courses.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I came from a public school, and I would say they're challenging in all of the best ways. It grows you, it stretches you to know more, and to dive deeper. And so coming from a public institution, I didn't feel like it was a challenge to the point that I couldn't do it. There, like Rebecca mentioned, there was so much grace and even explanation with the knowledge that we're all learning this alongside of each other. So there was a beauty in that exploration and understanding the Word of God in such a deeper way. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, we did have some submitted logistical questions, things that parents were curious about. And one was, my student would like to bring his desktop computer and use a Chromebook for in classes with this work. Would this work, or must he use a laptop? I'm curious if any of you have insight into that.
I not very tech savvy as far as being able to tell you what specifics my son used on his iPad. I know that he tried to do kind of a hybrid version similar to that, where he had a desktop, because he initially started with a film major as well as business marketing, and felt like for editing and other purposes, a larger monitor would be better. And then he would take notes with his pencil on his iPad and utilize apps for that. He partly because he changed his major, but partly because he found that his friends were all going to the library to study, and he wanted to be with them in that space, and he felt kind of chained to his desk with his desktop monitor. So he ended up upgrading to a more powerful laptop, and it served both purposes for him.
That's one thing I would say too. My kids both did have laptops, and they took it to every class with them. They access it so much. That's how they access their grades, their assignments. And if they want to, have it in class, and then they're going to go study somewhere in between classes, not go back to their room, go to the library, study with friends. It just makes, I think, their life quite a bit easier if they have a laptop, because they really need it to access everything. And having to be in the room all the time, I think they find most of the time that isn't the only place they want to be to do all their schoolwork. So I think having a laptop would make college life a lot easier for them.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and just echo the sentiments that was already shared. I mean, there are a lot of spaces where they can work, not only on campus, I mean, in the classroom, but also, like you say, in cafes or other people's rooms, or common areas, things like that. It's just more convenient. So our kids have always had laptops. It's also good when they come home, they can do their homework. They can't, they'll have everything they need. Now that said, my son's roommate does have a desktop, but he uses it mostly to play games.
Gaming.
Yes, you will find some of the students strapped to the computer playing the games. You're right. We did have a question about cars. Now, do you recommend students bringing a car, and maybe the pros and cons of bringing a car to campus?
I know that our son didn't have a car until he was a senior. Yeah. So our son, his first 3 years, he didn't have a car, and he managed fine. We were just trying to keep expenses down, so that's why we did that. But when he did get a car when he was a senior, that meant there was just obviously it's a lot easier. So probably it's a matter of finances from our perspective, as to if you really need to save money. It's very doable not to have one. It's just a little inconvenient, but doable. So I noticed a number of kids would just have a bike or a scooter, like the little wheeled scooter, to get around quicker on campus, or they could bike to the grocery store really close.
And a lot of Philip's friends would, drive him here and there, and he'd give him a little money to, take care of gas. So it worked out for him. It's definitely nice to have a car, but there's a lot of people that have cars, so it's a good way to make friendships too.
Yeah, I can speak as a parent with coming from out of state, if any of you are wondering about that, because that adds a different dynamic. We're from Washington State, so neither of our kids had a car freshman year. Our son didn't have a car till junior year, and our daughter brought her car sophomore year. But truly freshman year, I feel like it is a great time. They still were able to get to church every Sunday. They had to work at it a little harder because they had to make sure they could find a ride ahead of time. And then once that got established, that got a little easier. And they would find, someone in the dorm would be like, oh, doing a Target run, anybody want to go, or whatever. And so the students are so kind in sharing rides. We really found that to be true for our kids. I never remember hearing our kids say freshman year, I really needed to get somewhere and couldn't, and just having it be a big issue. And as far as getting rides to the airport, the students are so great. Even when our kids have cars there, when they're flying home, they still need a ride to the airport. And I think in all 4 years of my son being there, and now it's been 2 years of our daughter being there, I think we've had to pay for an Uber one time to get them to the airport. They've been able to find rides every time, and we encourage them, buy them In-N-Out burger, to thank them or give them money for gas or whatever they want. So and having a car upperclassmen years is helpful, especially if they start getting residencies or jobs or anything like that off campus. And it makes it easier for getting to church, or if they get involved in things off campus, or just having the freedom, going to the beach, whatever. But truly, I feel like I was thankful freshman year that they didn't have cars there. I wanted them to be really integrated on campus, and it did cause them to make friendships with other people and learn how to do that, even how to navigate finding a ride when you don't have a way to get somewhere. And I felt like it was really good for our kids. So it is doable, even if you live out of state.
Okay. The next question is, are there local churches that have a ministry of welcoming college-age students? And also a part of this question, you can touch on what it looks like for your kids to get involved in ministry and the churches that they have been a part of while they're at Biola.
Well, I think it is very important to encourage your student to obviously to participate and be active in church. I think sometimes students may think, well, I already go to chapel. That's kind of like church, and it's not the same thing.
No.
It's not a replacement for church. And of course, it may be the first time in their life that they're not going to church with their family. And so, if they don't go Sunday morning, no one's kind of, waking them up and getting them in a car and things like that. So they have to take responsibility for their own faith. You also may find that your student may decide to go to a church that's a different style than your home church or what they grew up in. And that's something they have to kind of figure out and navigate on their own as well. But we found that there are lots of great churches locally. Lots of other students who are, like someone said earlier, offering rides for freshmen to take them to church. There's just many places that are nearby that they can get involved with. Some are larger churches with college ministry. Some are smaller churches. There's many opportunities to serve, whether they are, skilled in music, leading worship, or working with children, or whatever it is. So I think it's important to just reinforce and encourage them to take part in that as a college student. And be part of their local church community, whatever it looks like for them and their preference.
Our daughter Hannah started going to Grace EV Free in La Mirada, and she loved it so much. She told us we should start going there, so we switched churches. But it's just speaking specifically, that is a very special church. One of the reasons we love it, and our kids love it too, we all go there now, is that they don't have one pastor. They have a rotation of 6 or 7 lead pastors. And I think 3 or 4 of them are Biola theology professors. So it's a really rich environment, and a lot of Biola students are there. And because there's such a close connection to Biola, they encourage students to get involved and serve in the church, which we think is really important too, to not only just go to church, but make it home, and serve other people. So there's a specific church that we'd recommend.
Yeah, and we were able to add to the chat a list of local churches in our area. I want to emphasize something that Liz and Jolly mentioned earlier is something that Biola talks about often, is that we are not the replacement for a church, even though chapel is offered and that's something that is an expectation for students to attend. We still want them to go out into the community and find a church where they can call home. And so I'm so grateful that you mentioned that, because that will be something that is emphasized those first couple weeks of school, is find your church. Here are the resources available for you. Throughout the year, you'll see churches actually parked in our campus, and they'll have tables offering resources to students so that they can meet the community here at Biola and even just introduce their church to the students that are here. So those are options. We oftentimes have fairs that have all of the local churches featured so that students can get a feel for what churches are available in the area as well. So there are a lot of options, a lot of really great options. And there are a lot of options where our professors are head pastors and leading in those spaces. So you know that the professors here are deep within the community and sharing what they share within the classroom to the church as well. So thank you for that. I did have a question that I wanted to highlight, and I think it is a unique one. It's a good one to ask is, what did you do when your student got sick or hurt? Are there any specific examples that you might have where I can imagine it would be challenging? You're not here on campus with them. So what did that process look like for your student?
I can speak to that. There was 2 examples. The most recent one is Jack went to Hawaii with some friends for spring break, and while he was there, stepped on a sea urchin, and they attempted to remove it, but when he got home or back to school, his foot was in a great deal of pain, and so he made an appointment. They can make appointments online. He made an appointment that same morning, got right in to see the physician, and they removed the nettles that were still in his foot, and were able to give him a small dose antibiotic and send him on his way, and he felt immensely better. But it's just astounding to me that you can see a doctor on the same day, be cared for, and be sent with medication, and it's so much less expensive than any other options that he really did feel cared for that day.
I would say for small things, the students should be aware of the on-campus health services and where it is, and they can go get help and, cold medicine, small things like that. For bigger things, most 18-year-olds are not real well-versed on health insurance. So you should educate them on that, whether you have the Biola student one or whether you have your own, what the card is, who they can call, all that. It's a good thing to talk to them before they head off to school in case they do need to call somebody or make an appointment to see something. I mean, the health system is hard for anybody to navigate, but if they've never done it, you might want to just kind of walk them through the steps if they need to go see somebody.
What about that, something to note when they are in the hospital and then?
Oh, that's a separate issue.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry. I thought that was helpful.
Yeah, I know that Rebecca highlighted the health center and how easy it is to get an appointment, how easy it is to get seen, and the care that they display there is wonderful for students. So students have access to the care center. I would even say that little items like throat lozenges or ibuprofen or Band-Aids, or all of that stuff is available within our student center that they can easily walk in and get it on the way to class. And they have free resources available within our student care center. So something great for them to have access to. Okay, let me look at some of our other questions that we have. Do any of you have experience with campus resources like the Writing Center, disability services, or counseling? And what was that process like for your student?
We have our students, my kids have used those things that, as a parent, I was always highly encouraging them to use the Writing Center. It's such a great resource. They weren't as sold on the idea as I was, but they did I finally ended up talking them into it. When they write a paper, they can have someone they can sign up for an appointment at the Writing Center and have someone edit their paper, give them feedback so that to kind of help them. So those can be especially helpful for students maybe that struggle with writing, but even for those that don't. I think that is such a nice resource to have. It's free. They just have to sign up for the appointment. That was always the tricky thing in our family. And then also, what was the last part of that question, Kayla? I already forgot, but
yeah, so it's, do you have any experience with campus resources like Writing Center, disability services, or counseling, and what that process is like?
yes, and the counseling center is great. We had one of our kids that was going through a really tough situation with a friend and just felt like they wanted some counsel. And so they called and made an appointment with the counseling center and was able to get in. I feel like a couple different times the appointments were made, and I feel like at least one of the times they squeezed them in the same day, and then another time maybe a couple days later, and we were able to meet with a counselor who just gave them good advice. So that is such a great resource that Biola has, and I think you can even sign up for long-term, like regular counseling, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, let your student know about that, and that is a really helpful and wonderful resource Biola has.
I'll just second. Oh, go ahead, Jolly.
I would also add that they should make use of academic advising. They want to navigate sort of the different paths of, I mean, it's very common for them to decide to change majors or pick, something else as a concentration or minor. And I would encourage parents to let their students seek that out and navigate that themselves, as opposed to kind of micromanaging what courses they should take and when and all that. But they need to ask for help. They need to, ask for a roadmap of how to plan their semesters and the years and so forth. And also the Career Center for looking for jobs, summer jobs, permanent jobs. I mean, those are resources on campus that every student should avail themselves of.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that my son has used the Writing Center and found it valuable in just having another pair of eyes to review his work. He has not utilized counseling, but he has utilized spiritual advising or direction. So that's also a service that they have available to them. I know he was going through a period of time where there was a lot of just weight from things his friends were experiencing, and he felt it was beneficial to talk it through with a spiritual director.
Yeah, all of these things address the holistic health of our students, looking at their academic needs, looking at their personal and relational needs, and even looking at their emotional needs. And so by addressing the BCC, the Biola Counseling Center, or spiritual direction, these are all ways in which we engage the health, the emotional health of our students. I think one thing to note with the Biola Counseling Center is that students do receive discounts if they were to join and receive services from the Biola Counseling Center. And then spiritual direction, both of those are very different services. And so even just having your student try them out and get a feel for what it looks like. We also have campus pastors that are available for appointments if there's just more of an immediate need to talk through things with someone. These are all amazing, amazing resources to our students, and services that have increased in terms of the amount of students that have reached out to these spaces to receive help. So I think even just pointing these out to your students before they get on campus, the process of transitioning to a university is one that, while it is good change, it can be disorienting. And so as we can lay the groundwork of all that's offered for them through these services, I think that's a really great way to go. And I love that you all have utilized a lot of these services. The links are available in the chat if you're wanting to look at what is available for your students and even just kind of research these things prior to coming to campus. Okay, let's look at our next question. We have some out-of-state families, and so if there are any out-of-state parents that would like to address even just travel recommendations, which airport, any travel hacks that you have, and even what it looks like to come to campus, what are opportunities to come to campus if you're out of state, if you could address those concerns.
I might be the only out-of-state parent in the panel today, so I guess that's me. But there are a lot of airports around Biola that you could use. Besides, there's the two closest really are John Wayne, or it's called Orange, or it's called Santa Ana. It's all the same airport. That's probably the most popularly used one, I would guess, for most Biola students. Southwest Airlines also, we happen to know, flies into Long Beach, and we love the Long Beach airport. It's a nice small airport that's also very close to Biola. There is LAX. Kids don't tend to like it too much. We don't like it. The kids don't like to take rides to give rides to LAX, but it's just such a big airport, more of a headache to get in and out of. But it is an option if you need to, and they do have to do it sometimes, so it's okay. There's also Burbank and Ontario. Those are farther, but if you're in a pinch, they're more 45 minutes to an hour away, so not ideal, but we have done that before for various reasons we needed to. But like I had mentioned earlier, kids, asking their friends for a ride, putting out in a group chat or whatever, or asking on their floor. It seems like they usually are able to get a ride to the airport or get picked up from the airport when they go back after being home. And I'm trying to think if there's any other. We have never really had any bad issues with our kids traveling back and forth from Washington. We fly a lot of Alaska and Southwest from up here, and both, it's been great. One of the weekends, I highly advise, if you want your student to come home for Thanksgiving, oftentimes it's the first time they may come home after they first go to college, and I do recommend trying to get that one as early as possible, because that's probably the one most expensive flight of the whole entire year that we end up just paying a little more Thanksgiving weekend. It's a struggle. They typically will, the students typically don't have Wednesday classes, I think, if I'm mistaken, although, Biola, you tell me if you think I'm wrong on that. I think we've brought our students home before on even a Tuesday night or Wednesday. But getting them back Sunday before classes Monday, it can be expensive. So just prepare yourself for that one. But the rest of the Christmas break starts so much before Christmas, and they don't go back till January. So that tends to be not too expensive and pretty easy to find flights. And yeah, travel really is not a huge hard issue. We don't feel like going to Biola from Washington State anyway.
Thank you for sharing as the rep from out of state. We love it.
So I would agree with what Lisa said, especially about LAX. If you're not familiar with Southern California, LAX takes a while to get to. Regardless of the distance, you could be stuck at that LAX loop for like 20 minutes and not even be able to get to the terminal. So, if you have a fare that goes to Orange County and it's, $10 more than going to LAX, go to Orange County, maybe even $20 more. Like, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and headache and Uber costs or whatever it is. So avoid LAX if you can all possible.
But if you have to go to LAX, maybe have your child meet you at the rental car area, and you could pick them up there. We've also had our students do that.
Yeah, that's great.
I would also just add really quickly, as a local family, if students aren't able to travel for a holiday, there's plenty of people, hopefully, who are willing to adopt them and welcome them to their table. We've hosted a few students around Easter and otherwise, so don't feel like they'll be sitting in their room alone.
Yes, yeah. Well, I would say we probably have time for one more question, and this last question speaks to the safety that is so important to parents and to their students as they're coming to campuses. So this individual asked, some of the classes appear to end late in the evening. Did you always feel safe with your student walking on campus at later hours?
I'm just going to tell you a really quick story. The freshman year my son was here, they decided to sleep in hammocks outside in the trees of the grove, and I was worried. And I learned the next day that the campus safety had checked in on them at least twice. So I do not worry about their safety. We have an amazing campus safety crew who are constantly ensuring that our students are safe on campus.
And as the mom of a daughter, I would say that I have, and having the experience of having my son going there first and seeing what it was like, we have felt so good about Biola and their security and campus safety. Chief O is fantastic. You'll probably get to meet him if you haven't already in any of the Biola meetings, but he has won numerous awards for his safety program at Biola, and it's fantastic. We our daughter has always felt safe, and you know, they can always call a campus security officer to escort them if they need an escort in the evening or something, if they did feel unsafe, or if, you know, you felt better about it. But our daughter has always felt really safe, and we have always felt really good about it too, and never had any qualms about her being safe on Biola's campus. So it's very reassuring for sure.
Absolutely. And as was mentioned in our chat, you will actually have the opportunity to hear from Chief O if you attend our next webinar series. We'll have him available to speak about campus safety, so we can address even any of those concerns if you're able to join us. But it looks like our time is coming to a close. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, both attendees and our parent council. You all have amazing stories and even experience to share, as you've had many children come through Biola. With it coming to a close, I just wanted to offer a reminder that this is the second of 4. So we have 2 more up and coming webinars, Ask Me Anything webinars. So our next one is July 10th, where we'll be joined by Campus Safety and our Health Center to hear how we care for our students and their physical safety, but also their health as well. And then July 24th, we'll be hearing from student development and talking through conversations that you can have with your student over the summertime prior to them coming to our campus. But we'll send each of you a follow-up email detailing the questions that were asked today, including the video of this webinar. But we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us today. Bye.